So as you can see, the 67 is pretty well stripped down. Methodically stripping off the paint and filler panel by panel as I go, just to eat an elephant one bite at a time and minimize the dust inside the shop so I can actually breathe in here. So the front firewall cowls have been stripped to take some stock. The body's on the factory reference points, fully bolted down and referenced. That provides two benefits. One, I know that my body was pretty straight to begin with, and the frame has been validated with the existing body. So when I do pull the body off the jig and start fabbing the full floors, the trunk rails, and the like off the car, I'll have some confidence to know that everything's in the right spot, not just reference to my understanding of the factory reference points. So validation I saw was key in my brain. So as we begin to look at the rockers, I've already cut open the rear and begun to take stock as well. Swiss cheese all along. I have inner and outer rockers already on hand and purchased. Was figuring I might have to replace the full inner, but the inner is in pretty good shape. So part of the bracing, I established a reference point. I'm using what remains in the car to my structural advantage. So I'm not hacking out the floor to start with. I leave it in, and I can weld braces to it and use that structural support and whatever rigidity is left to my advantage. The cross brace on the door, I have easy reference to a sort of a feeler gauge. So I know that when I bring the new rocker in, I can quickly reference it to a data line or datum line. So my brace becomes that, with the addition of a handy little square as a reference point. Back quarter is pinned to my frame jig as well, so that doesn't move. It gives me ample room to work and start peeling away the rockers. On the inside, the only issue I'd really have, let's see if this will light up. The inner rocker at the base of the A-pillar you can see is rusted. But beyond that, this flange on the inner rocker comes through into the cowl. Everything here is really solid, and I don't want to open that up and create a can of worms I don't need to deal with. But I will utilize that portion of the inner rocker for a patch, and if I have enough flexibility to remove the remaining rocker and keep that patch panel more intact, I'm going to utilize that instead of having to spend all kinds of time prepping that existing rocker. But we'll see. I need to get it open a bit more. I'll strip off the rocker and show you some progress. All right, so about 80% of the exterior outer rocker has been cut off. Pleasantly surprised. The inner rocker from the inside is in really good shape. A little bit of surface rust, but nothing structural, that's for sure. As I crawl along the floor, this inner brace is completely on the outer rocker, so I can continue to cut that off. That galvanized brace I can secure to the new outer rocker. But I'm thinking now, after looking at the inner rocker, I probably don't want to touch that. One, in order to get it off, I'd have to completely disconnect it from the existing floor, and these seat braces and the like provide a lot of rigidity to the body. That inner rocker, for the most part, is completely sound metal. No issue there at all. So again, why would I open up the floor, pull the complete rocker assembly off, and destabilize the passenger side of the vehicle? It doesn't make sense. Other than that repair at the toe board area, that's the only part of the inner rocker that's in question. So I think I'm going to leave the inner rocker alone and maybe even fab a piece to patch that area instead of tying into my new rocker, and go talk to my buddy Reg at Walker Auto Parts here in Winnipeg. There, Reg, gave you a nice little plug, and see if I know he'll take back the inner rockers if I don't use them, so why not save the money and put it towards something else? It doesn't look like I'm going to need them. Awesome. So off comes the remaining outer rocker, and we'll check back shortly. All right, I'm back. Rocker's out for the most part. If you look underneath this rear quarter, you'll see the top saddle of the outer rocker still there. I need to get that out and try not to disturb that outer rocker as best as possible. And here at the front, at the A-pillar, you see that layer of outer rocker underneath that pillar support, and that goes deep inside up until the cowl shoulder. Inside here you see the inner rocker. Maybe get some daylight shining through. No, can't see it. But the benefit of removing that inner rocker is you got access to the underside of this A-pillar to get the remaining outer rocker out. Moving inside, you see here, this is the structural brace that's between the inner and outer rocker. Got that out for the most part. You know, the little drain valley that sandwiches at the bottom. And you see how that brace flares out to the right. That takes up this gap between the inner rocker, where the inner rocker meets the floor, and spans to the left, which is the the structural side of the body frame with the outer rocker underneath. I thought that top flat runoff piece that was part of the outer rocker cut through it. I should have looked on the new outer rocker I had, because clearly that's not there. So this brace will need attention. Regardless, the end is a little beat and rusted, and the like, but there's plenty of brace here to work with. Don't see that as an issue, making it true and getting that prepped and ready for install. On the other side, that inner brace is even more rusted, so regardless, both braces are going to need proper attention. So now at a decision point. The last segment before I cut the rocker out, I thought, the logic of keeping that inner rocker was sound. Keep it, don't open that can of worms. But now I'm at a point where you see this remaining lip, that's the outer rocker, that's spot welded, probably with 100+ spot welds along that inner rocker to marry the two together. All those spot welds would need to be drilled out, that remaining piece of metal peeled off, everything ground smooth, prepped, primed, and ready to accept an outer rocker to spot weld in its place. That's one side. Then on the other side, of course, because I'm replacing the full floor, all along the floor, along that inner rocker, I would need to do the exact same. Once I cut the floor away, the remnant floor would need all the spot welds to be drilled out, that metal peeled off and prepped. But the alternative, I have a brand new inner rocker. I could just take my plasma cutter, cut the floor away from the inner rocker, free the inner rocker, and I avoid all that spot weld drilling, prepping and the like, and have a brand new sound rocker, inner and outer, to marry together with a rebuilt brace to attach. So what's the risk? Well, I'm cutting out more structure. But what structure do I have remaining? I still have the package tray and the brace, and what's left of the inner and outer wheel wells connected to the body. And at the front, my Firewall is structurally in good shape, and the cowls are in great shape. So that's all connected. I left that inner dash on because it's welded on both sides, so that's providing a structural brace across the A-pillars. I have the advantage of having my frame jig, the rails beyond the body. I did that for this exact reason, because I can weld supports from, I could pick up put a plate on the door hinge, bolt that on, weld that plate to the frame, similar to what I did at the rear quarter. I could drop some braces from the cross down to the floor if I wanted, but I do have at the floor where the subframe bolts in, I do have supports there as well. So I have new seat risers, so I don't have to worry about salvaging those. I would just need to cut off at the front. Then I still have all that structure still holding the body. I think that's going to be the way to go. The notion of prepping and cleaning up all those spot welds to salvage that inner rocker when so much of the body around it is intact and supported on this jig, that I think that might be the way to go. I'll let you know what I decide. I'm going to clean it up a bit and take it from there. All right, so what did I decide? Clearly took the path of removing the complete inner and outer rocker. You ask, why is the seat brace remaining? Really to establish reference points. This flange of the seat riser is flat against the inner rocker. I keep it. It's supported underneath by my frame jig. Excellent reference point. Similar in the back. I will be removing inner and outer rocker or wheel tubs. I will be putting on Detroit Speed mini tubs, but my outer wheel tub was also rusted, so I afford myself the opportunity to cut that back and get that interference out of the way. But you see, I did keep this part of the floor pan. The spring perch is right underneath, so there's quite a bit of strength in this remaining that's tied up to the package tray and the like, so I didn't want to destabilize that. And again, the same sort of logic. This flange along the intact rear part of the floor pan provides another reference point for that inner rocker, because that inner rocker butts up against it. So when I start to position the new inner rocker in place, I have clean reference points to not only establish the location, but also to clamp to reference that. All right, the last piece of the puzzle to deal with here's the new inner rocker on the floor. This flange that I mentioned before extends through the firewall and really becomes an integral component. Not only does the fender attach to the flange below, but it's tied into the frame support, firewall, the cowl, the rocker, the floor pan, and the like. And given its height, that's strength. It's like an I-beam. The greater the distance and the supporting load, the stronger it is. If you take a 2x4 on the flat, you can bend it, but if you take a 2x4 on the tall side and try and bend it, using a wood analogy, it's strong. So the strength in this flange is its height. So you start to make cuts along there or weld along that support, you have the potential to weaken it. So in my brain, the value of going down this path of travel is that I have brand new rockers, inner and outer. It's a long-term viewpoint. It's January 2021. I'm thinking, structural integrity, for another 50 years, as opposed to patching something in these key structural locations. It might look great from the outside, but I'm introducing a welded seam on the inside that is problematic, especially long term. So in my mind, this path of travel is the better value. But ironically, part of that decision was to free myself from the tedious task of cleaning up that inner rocker of all those spot welds to prep it for an outer. And you can see how decisions like that create another world of hurt, because there's no avoiding it. I have to deal with spot weld removal and all sorts of tie-ins here. I don't want to start weakening this and opening it up more than I have to, because then it becomes a law of diminishing returns, where the goal was structural stability with new rockers, but now I'm monkeying around with everything else that's is integral and in good shape. Yeah, so I'm going to open up the front support here of the inner rocker, and I'll cut back to you and see how successful I am clearing that out. Yay, success. I'll take a small win when you can get it. Before I removed that inner rocker brace, flange, whatever you want to call it, I welded a quick reference point with a hole on the top that lined up with the bolt for the fender, so I know exactly the elevation, location, center point of that inner rocker when I go to put it back in place. I was able to access the spot welds from either the inside of the vehicle or from this vantage point here. I did not have to remove the cowl shoulder in order to access additional welds, so that was good news. I didn't have to open up any more of the firewall either. That remains structurally intact. Have a quick look on the inside. Haven't cleaned anything up here, so you see where that inner rocker was and now the gap between. I should have plenty of room to slide fish the new inner rocker in place. Obviously I gotta clean up that location and prep it, seal it, weld through primer before I continue. There's some repairs that need to be done here. I don't know the extent of that surface rust, if it's compromised the metal. There's no light shining through it, so that's a plus. But just one quick thought, anytime you have these inaccessible areas, again with a long-term view, great, it looks good, you seal it up and move on, but this is what that panel looked like on the inside. Looks great from the outside, but the inside, you see its condition. The benefit this flange has, it's fairly thick gauge steel, so is this the structural integrity compromised? No. But investing all this time, albeit in money, at least here now, I have an opportunity to go into these areas, clean them up, treat them before moving forward. So for me, I think that makes good sense and long-term value. So the cowl's accessible from the firewall. This inner brace on the firewall is accessible now. I'll have an all new rocker assembly, both inner and outer. And I've been toying with the idea that inner brace, the rocker brace that I have to fab that spans across to the inner in that back corner, I think I'm going to extend that brace all the way to the A-pillar on the inside. So instead of having to put like a tiger cage or a bar above the floor, why not put that additional brace and strength inside the rocker? They put a brace here under the door jamb for a reason, because it added strength to the car in that location. Why not extend that brace, tie it in this location, so that it picks up the points of the seat riser, and then continues all the way to the A-pillar, all neatly tucked away inside the rocker assembly. So obviously when I start to move forward on that, I'll share that with you to see if I change my mind between now and then. It all depends how things shape up. But right now that's a win. I think I'm going to test fit the inner rocker and see what that looks like. One step forward, two steps back. No way I can fish this new inner rocker up into its spot. Why? I got too many supports in the way. So this bad boy here, I think I am going to remove, or better yet, maybe I'll that plate that has the hole in it, maybe I'll hang it from a bar off of the cowl and keep it in its location, and then I'll just cut the tacks from the vertical support, and then hopefully it stays in place there. But then it'll allow me to slide the rocker out towards the bottom, and then clear the firewall in order to tuck it up in. Let me give it a shot. Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't think I was going to fandangle that inner rocker in. What a chore. Well, if I had to do it different, if the frame jig had about 6 inches more clearance between the cross rails and the bottom of the vehicle, I could come straight up with the inner rocker. But it doesn't, and I wasn't going to go 10 steps back or break apart my reference points while the car, or while the shell of the body is wide open, just to raise it to be able to lift that in. And you can see it's sitting off there right now because the brace that I have here is in the way. I put it in that location thinking I was never going to take the inner brace off, so there was double, triple the layers of metal there, so I figured, well, what a great spot to put the brace. But now I have to move it so I can get that brace flush against it. So I won't cut it off until I have another one in place. I drilled a hole right through so I can easily reference the exact location when I put it back. But I'll put another brace across higher, and then once I get that out of the way, it'll lay flat and no problem. The seat riser, that bracket works great to set that reference point, something to clamp to, and same thing here, easy to clamp to that. There's flanges at the bottom and it sets my reference point, so at least that plan worked out well. Yeah, so I'm going to pull this out. Now I can clean up all the I had to cut out one piece, that rusted piece of Firewall toe board. Figured it had to come out anyways, so it gave me a little more flexibility, a little more room to play with to get that flange in. I can weld it in first and still have access to it, because now I think I have a way of getting this in and out. So playing with that, I think I spent probably 2 hours of my time trying to fandangle that in, but it's in. I'm pretty sure I can get it out. Now the prep work and the like. So I'm going to pause it there, and that's probably it for today. Thanks.